Hey everyone, this is Dylan, and today we're going to be doing a movie review for you guys. And so the movie I'm reviewing today is Scream 6. For the first portion of this review, it will be a non-spoiler with general thoughts and things that are not spoilery about the movie. And then at the end, I will go into some in-depth spoilers. I'll make sure to mark on the video when the spoilers start so that if you are watching, you can turn it off if you have not seen it yet. I just wanted to start off by giving some general thoughts about the movie as a whole. And I will say that I really enjoyed this movie a lot more than I did number 5. I think that this movie, there's a monologue in this movie where Mindy says this is a franchise movie. The kills have to be bigger. The edginess has to be increased. I think that they really succeeded in that aspect of this movie by increasing these kills. And that was one of the cool things. I think there were a lot more inventive ways that the characters died rather than just Ghostface stabbing them with a knife. I will say that a good portion of the deaths occurred to no-name people. So basically people in the movie where you don't know who they are. And I thought that that was an interesting way to take it. I don't think we've ever really had that in a Scream movie. I know that some of the deaths that we had in this movie were off screen, which I also think is a little interesting. I did like the bigger deaths, and I did like the variety of deaths that we got in this movie. So this movie takes place in New York City, but you sure wouldn't know it if you watched this movie because it actually was filmed in Canada. And I don't think that it showed too much until I got out of the movie and I was thinking about it and I was like, this movie didn't really feature any iconic New York landmarks. I think that it would have been incredible if we saw Ghostface in the middle of a busy Times Square. I think that maybe they didn't want to do that because Jason Takes Manhattan did that with Jason Voorhees, but I mean, come on. Times Square is one of the most iconic parts of New York City, and to not have a scene take place there, I think is a huge missed opportunity. I was telling my friend that I went to see it with that you have that and then the Statue of Liberty, which is another iconic thing, but the Statue of Liberty is a little bit harder to justify because it's on an island and it's like, how would you get the characters to Ellis Island and then at the Statue of Liberty? That wouldn't make a lot of sense, but I think that Times Square should have been something that definitely was included in this movie. We do have a subway scene, so I think that that kind of fits in with the New York vibe, but yeah, I wish we would have got a Times Square. I'm interested why the characters decided to move to New York. It was clear that Mindy and Chad and Tara were all going to college there at Blackmore University. I'm not sure if that's a reference to anything or if that's a real university. It's not a university that I'm familiar with. So it's like they're going there for, Tara's going there for film studies, which I didn't really think that she was that big of a film person. I know that Mindy was in film studies and we don't really know what Chad was doing. So it's like, why did they all choose to go to that college? It would have also been smart if they split up. Let's go to different parts of the country. Somebody could go to Seattle. Somebody could go to New York City. Somebody could go to Florida, and somebody could go to Southern California. You spread out. These movies only work if you're together, and the fact that they were let's all stick right together. They kind of they were let's have this happen again. Before I get into the spoilers, I just want to give my rating of this movie, and I think that it is a solid 4 out of 5 stars for me. I think that this is definitely better than the Scream 5, and I think that this is one of the stronger entries in the Scream franchise. I would say, just off the top of my head, I might do a ranking of the videos but I think I want to say that it lands between Scream 2 and Scream 4 for me. And so I'll just leave it at that. I won't give any other details of like what's higher and lower. So if I do a ranking video, it won't be anything, I wouldn't have spoiled it in this video. Let's get into the spoiler portion of this video. So if you have not watched Scream 6 yet, make sure to click off of this video because I will be getting into heavy spoilers. So I first want to start off by talking about the opening sequence. I thought that this was an interesting opening sequence where we have kind of like this double fake out situation. So we are following Samara Weaving's character who is waiting on somebody for a date. It's not entirely clear how much she knows about this guy that she is supposedly coming on a date with. She has a dating app that they have been communicating on, but like, have they FaceTimed? Have they like Snapchatted? Like, is it just text communication? I mean, in any kind of dating situation, I'd like to see the person before I like go on a date with them, like an actual essentially live photo. It'd be a little weird if she didn't ask for anything like that. We soon learn that at least Ghostface has gotten this guy's phone if he was real to even begin with. The whole thing is that he is lost, can't get to the restaurant or whatever. So she goes out and he's like, oh, there's an alley right here. Let me go through it. So she goes to the alley and is like waiting around for him. She's like, I don't see you. And I thought that this was kind of interesting. I was like, maybe they're going to do some sort of like a visual prank or something on her. And so she like, so the guy starts talking about how somebody's following him and how he has a knife. So she like runs into this alley to save this guy who she can't see. So it doesn't really make a ton of sense. And then Ghostface pops out and stabs her. And where it starts to subvert expectations is this Ghostface takes his mask off and we see who it is. And then we followed this Ghostface for a little bit and he goes back to his apartment and we find out that he has a bit of a shrine to Ghostface, and him and his roommate have decided that they were going to kill their film studies professor. Why? I don't think they ever really mentioned it. And then the real Ghostface comes out and stabs the fake Ghostface. And so I thought that this was a interesting take on the cold open. We've already had 9 instances, including all the movies and all 3 seasons of the television show. So I like that they were able to actually do something that was a bit different. Now let's talk about the core 4, as they like to be called, or at least as Chad likes to call them. So let's start off with Sam. I didn't particularly like Sam's character in Scream 5. I thought that she was a little one note and I didn't understand her character very much. I thought that maybe the performance was a little off and it just led to me not liking her very much. And so I will be happy to say that I actually did really enjoy Melissa Barrera and the character of Sam more in this movie. I still don't like the addition of her seeing visions of Billy. I think that that is a bit cheap, and I don't necessarily like how they are trying to equate being the daughter of a serial killer, or I think that they would technically be considered spree killers, but semantics. I think that equating being the child of a killer and then you becoming a killer is kind of in poor taste. That's clearly not what happens. Look at all of the instances of true crime where somebody is a serial killer, say, and they have children. Those children don't grow up to be serial killers. So I think that it's just like, why are we having this kind of storyline when it's not like it happens all the time? So I thought that that was a bit weird. Now let's talk a little bit about Tara. Tara really isn't a she's like a main character, but I feel like she has less to do in this movie than she did in the first movie. This is really the Sam show when it comes down to it, but Tara does have quite a few really good scenes. Jenna Ortega is an incredible actress. You can genuinely feel that she is terrified in these situations. I thought that she was the best part of the Scream 5, and I thought that she had a little bit more of a backseat role in this film, but I think that she still did really good. And then we have Chad. Chad and Tara are having this like romantic relationship, or at least the beginning of a romantic relationship. So I think that that's kind of interesting. It's not something that we've ever encountered in the Scream franchise with surviving characters. Chad also is kind of like not really a major part of this movie. Like he's there and he doesn't necessarily do a ton or add a lot to the dynamic. He's a nice character in that he symbolizes like family, that they've all went through this traumatic situation and that they're all there for each other. So I really do like that. And the actor that plays Chad is such a lovable character, such a lovable person, that he just makes Chad a really nice person that you want to root for to survive. And I will say I am surprised that he survived this movie. Honestly, he should have died. He got stabbed so many times. And it's like, all right, what the heck is going on? Because Dewey's never been stabbed that many times. Gail's never been stabbed that many times. She's been shot, but she's never been like viscerally stabbed. And so it's just like, how many times can we keep bringing back these characters after thinking that they've died? All right, let's talk about Mindy. Mindy is the one who gives this like major monologue about this now being a franchise film and everything's got to be bigger, it's got to be better. Legacy characters are on the table for deaths. New characters are on the table for deaths. And it's like, you just said this, but then they don't kill any of the legacy characters in this movie. So I thought that that was an interesting way to take it if you were going to include this franchise about, or this monologue about franchises and how legacy characters are expendable. Mindy gets stabbed quite a few times. Well, she gets stabbed one time in the subway. I never really thought that she would die in this because of the stab. And she doesn't die, so I thought that that was good. I was a little surprised that they like let her out of the hospital to go to the crime scene at the end. That was a little weird, but I guess what are you gonna do? Let's talk about Gail. I think that she has some really great scenes in this movie. She has a couple pretty good lines, particularly when they're going to the actual Ghostface museum. She has a couple like good quips there, and she's like, oh, yeah, I'm a really good investigative journalist. And I was like, yeah, you go, Gail, because those are some really fun things. She has a really good scene with Ghostface where she's able to actually fight back. They even make reference to something where Gail's never actually talked to Ghostface on the phone. And I thought that that was something that was really interesting. I don't know if that's actually true. I can't imagine that it's not true after they included it, but I never would have guessed that Gail had never talked to Ghostface. I was glad that she ended up surviving. It like looked for a minute that she wasn't going to survive, and I'm really glad that she did. Of the original 3 characters, I think Sydney and Gail are the ones that people liked the most, and so I'm glad that neither one of them died. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room when it comes to Scream, and that is the character of Sydney. Sydney is not in this movie, which is a little bit disappointing considering that Neve Campbell has been in every single Scream movie, and it is also disappointing in the fact that she stepped away because she felt like she wasn't getting paid enough. And I think that is quite sad, and I did miss her a little bit in this movie. Ultimately, I think that it was kind of refreshing not to have her. We were able to focus more on these new characters, so it was a bittersweet type of situation. And we have the return of Kirby. So after Scream 5, there was the whole thing where one of the Easter eggs was that Kirby had an interview, so we knew that Kirby was alive after the ambiguous ending of Scream 4, where we thought that Kirby had died. So it was really great to have Kirby back. I feel like she wasn't quite Kirby enough, if that makes sense. Like, she did have a nice scene with Mindy when they were talking about horror movies. Like, one of them was, the only one that I really specifically remember being in it was where Kirby was like, Candyman, original or requel? And then they were like, both. And I was like, I had mentioned, I had nudged my friend that I went to see it with, and I was like, original. Because I thought that the Candyman requel or whatever they wanted to call it wasn't as good as the original. So that was a little bit of fun. But Kirby kind of played the traditional Gale role in this movie, where Gale shows up at the end in the third act and gets shot and then is out of the third act for most of it and then ends up coming back at the end to like save the day kind of thing. And she does survive, so we are presumably going to see more Kirby in the next movie. We had a couple references that I noticed in this movie. There's like an Ice 9 Kills flyer on the refrigerator from the opening sequence, I think, of the like fake Ghostface. And I was like, oh, that's cool, because I did, here, I'll show you the shirt. I didn't wear the shirt, but I had planned on wearing it, but then I was like, it might be a little too much. But this is like a reference to Scream. I'm not quite sure. I'm not like a hardcore into Ice 9 Kills or like metal music or anything like that, so I'm not sure how it actually relates to the Scream franchise, but I did think that that was kind of fun. And then when Tara went to a fraternity sorority party, which I think it's a sorority, but they say Omega Beta Zeta, and I was like, that sounds familiar. What is that from? And then I was like, I think that is the sorority that CC Cooper was in Scream 2. They didn't mention CC Cooper or anything about what happened at college in Scream 2, but I thought that that was a fun little reference. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the theories that I had while I watched this movie on who the killers were. So I'll first say that I did not guess who the killers were until mere moments before the actual killer was revealed. So when we had the sequence in the apartment where Quinn was being attacked and Ghostface was in the apartment attacking everyone, and we have Mindy get sliced on the arm, that clued me in. I was like, I think there's a good chance that Mindy is the killer or one of the killers if there are multiple. And so in the Scream franchise, if you get a slash on your arm, there's a good chance that you are the killer because you don't have a lethal injury. So I think there's only been 2 times in the franchise where it's happened and you haven't been the killer. And it's like Neve Campbell, Sidney Prescott in the first movie gets slashed in the arm and she survives and she's also not the killer. And then you have Jerry O'Connell's character, I forget what his name is, in Scream 2, where he gets sliced in the arm and then he ends up not being a killer. And so those are the only 2 instances I can think of. There may be more, but I was like, there's a good chance that Mindy is the killer. And I even thought it when she was stabbed. And they even make a reference to it during the killer reveal when we have the mastermind and then one of the killers revealed, and then they're like, Mindy? And then the other person rips their mask off and is like, nope. And so I thought that that was kind of interesting. I think that maybe the filmmakers wanted you to think that it was Mindy based off of that. If you were a smart viewer and you caught those clues that if you get a slice in the arm, maybe you are the killer. And then I was almost 100% sure that the killer was not Kirby when we had the situation where Wayne called and was like, Kirby's been off the FBI. I never thought that it was going to be Wayne that was like the mastermind. the mastermind behind it, but I was almost sure that it wasn't going to be Kirby. I thought that that would have been way too far to take the character, and I don't think she would have done it. And so I'm glad that we were able to not have Kirby as the killer. So now let's get to the actual killers in this movie. So we have Wayne, who is the father to Quinn and Ethan, who are revealed to be the killers. I don't think that Wayne has any... I don't know if he actually killed anyone in this movie, but he was kind of like the head mastermind of this entire plan. So we knew that there was at least 2 killers in the movie, because when Chad is stabbed, we have 2 Ghostface come out, so then we know that there's at least 2. And I was like, it's a Scream movie, there's at least 2, that makes a lot of sense. And then we have it revealed that Wayne is one of the quote-unquote killers. I was like, okay. And then when the 2 Ghostface come out, I gasped. I was like, because we've never had 3 killers. Ethan is revealed as one of the killers, and I was like, the other one's Quinn. It's gotta be Quinn, because why would somebody else be a part of it? He said, I've lost 2 kids now, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's Quinn. They're both it. And then the reveal that they are the siblings and father of Richie. I thought that that was really interesting too. And I will say that Dermot Mulroney, I don't know, once he's revealed as the killer, it kind of becomes a caricature that we have seen in all of these movies. Like, there was an actual part of this movie where I was like, he's literally just imitating Stu Macher. Like, he's doing this like weird mouth movements when it's revealed that he's the killer. He kind of just like a switch flips and he just goes crazy. And I don't know, I didn't particularly like that situation. I would have been interested to see a more real version of this. Like, I don't know, say something like if you watched Sick, Kevin Williamson's new movie Sick on Peacock, where, here's a spoiler for that movie, the killers in that movie are a family who are trying to avenge the death of their son and brother, but they're like sincere about it. They're not like off your wall rocker or off your rocker crazy. And so I was really curious why they chose to do that. Every single movie in the Scream franchise has done this like, oh, I'm really crazy type of thing, but it would have been more interesting, I think, if this was a sincere thing. Like, they were sincerely trying to get revenge for the death of Richie, and they weren't quote unquote crazy in the traditional sense. Because I think you probably have to have some sort of mental illness or something if you want to take revenge on somebody, but not like actual, let me act all wonky and crazy and stuff. So if that makes a little bit of sense. I do like that Quinn is revealed to be one of the killers. Then we have Ethan as the other killer. I think up until the finale, he's not really fleshed out very well as a character. He doesn't have a lot to do, and it's just kind of like, are you somebody that's just gonna die, or are you somebody, I guess, that could be a killer, which I never really thought of either of them as people that would be killers, so that was kind of interesting. Then this movie is almost directly copying the motivation from Scream 2. Like, there's a lot of references and similar plot points from this movie to Scream 2. And so if I had known that, I probably would have rewatched Scream 2 to see if there were any more. But like, the motivation is getting revenge essentially for the death of their son. So Mrs. Loomis in Scream 2 was getting revenge on Sydney from Scream 1 and killing Billy. And the exact same motivation happens in Scream 6, where the Wayne and the family are trying to get revenge for the death of Richie at the hands of Sam. So I thought that that was interesting. I also thought that it was quite interesting that they had this motivation related to character assassination. I don't know if they had ever necessarily intended on killing Sam, but I thought that the character assassination part was kind of interesting. It would have been more interesting, I think, if they had attempted this character assassination of the character of Sam, but failed at it. And then they were like, well, we just tried to assassinate her character, but it didn't work, so now we actually have to go and kill her. So I thought that that was an interesting kind of social commentary, and also the fact that so many people believed this like conspiracy theory that was brought up about how Sam was the actual killer, when that's something that kind of happens in real life. Like, people can get doxxed and some random person puts a name out there, and that person then kind of has their life ruined a little bit because everyone hates them, even though they could have literally nothing to do with what actually happened in them. Now let's finish out this review with what I think is going to happen in the future. There are some seeds planted in this movie for potential ways that they can take this franchise. And so there is the very clear seed that Stu could come back in some way, shape, or form. We have the reference of Mindy saying that if you believe that Schumacher actually died, so that's addressing the belief that apparently Schumacher did not die. I think that if they brought Schumacher back, I mean, I love Matthew Lillard and I loved the character of Schumacher, but it's going to be real hard to justify bringing that character back and explaining how that character actually survived. Because we have a sequence in this movie where Kirby and Wayne are going through all the killers. There's been like 9 killers so far. And the police have a thing that say that Schumacher is dead, like the day of death. And it's like, even if the police believe it, they're the ones that would have handled the body afterwards. Like, how could they cover up the death? I guess the way that Wayne did it, but like, I don't know. It wouldn't make a ton of sense unless they had like this really elaborate plan that somebody in the police force or something faked the death of Stu so that he could go into hiding or something. It's not like he is in prison or something, because like, why would we have never referenced this before? And so I think that will be interesting if they take it that direction, because I'm not quite sure how they would actually do it. I mean, and then there's the other situation where, is it going to be something related to Sam and Tara's mother? That was brought up a couple times. So like, is Sam going to have a half sibling like they did in Scream 3? Because we already know that they're kind of very similar to the original trilogy of movies. So Scream 5 was a very similar movie to Scream 1. Then we have Scream 6, which is a very similar movie to Scream 2. So like, is Scream 7 going to be another very similar movie to Scream 3? Including the killer motivation being like being like Sam and Tara's mother had another secret child, and that they took the mother away, whatever. So like, I think that it might be, I don't know. I'll be interested to see what they end up actually doing, because I think that would clue too many people in. And the whole point of the like Scream franchise is to keep you on your feet and like never know what is going on. So I don't know if that's necessarily the future. And I actually might do a video of a Scream movie pitch that I have of a way to take the franchise, not necessarily in this timeline, but in a potential offshoot of that. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments below and I will make that video. So that is it for this review of Scream 6. I hope that you guys enjoyed. This is probably going to be a bit of a long video, so be prepared. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought of Scream 6, whether you liked it or you didn't like it and why. And remember, if you're not already subscribed and you'd like to be, please hit that subscribe button down below and give the video a like if you liked it. Thank you guys for watching and have a great day. Bye.